Aunt Phil's Trunk Alaska History Series. I named the series after my Aunt Phyllis Carlson. She was one of Alaska's leading historians, a school teacher, and also a librarian for the Alaska section in Anchorage for many, many years. It's a 5-book series. Each book is a different time period, and this one that I'm going to read from today is the last in the series. It just came out and covers the first 25 years of statehood. And the story I want to share today is how that great earthquake of 1964 shook Alaska to its core. 200 cattle moved away from their low-lying grassy lands around 3 p.m. and climbed to higher ground on Louis Beatty's ranch on Narrow Cape, about 50 miles southwest of Kodiak. The rancher looked around and saw nothing but blue skies, sunshine, and calm seas that crisp Good Friday, March 27, 1964. He vaguely wondered why the cows were heading upland, as they had never gone before to higher ground so early in the day. 2.5 hours later, Beatty learned what his clairvoyant cattle may have sensed when the frozen ground and thick ice started to shake and crack. The second largest earthquake in recorded history struck at 5:36 p.m. Anchorage time. It measured 8.4 on the Richter scale. Experts later upgraded it to a 9.2 on the moment magnitude scale, as the Richter scale was determined to be inaccurate at measuring earthquakes larger than 8. The Temblor's epicenter was about 75 miles southeast of Anchorage, 54 miles west of Valdez, and 15 miles beneath the tranquil waters of the Prince William Sound. Centuries of pressure and strain finally broke loose when the crust of the Pacific Plate moved an estimated 25 to 30 feet northward, driving beneath the North American plate with such force that it released 200,000 megatons of energy in an instant. More energy than 10 million Hiroshima vintage atomic bombs. The effects were felt around the world, even in Chile, where the largest earthquake ever recorded at 9.5 hit on May 22, 1960, 4 years earlier. While 114 people died in Alaska, another 12 were killed in Crescent City, California, and 4 children camping on Beverly Beach State Park in Oregon lost their lives when tsunamis hit the Pacific coast. Tsunami, an adapted Japanese word meaning port wave, refers to the fact that the wave's danger and destructive power only becomes evident as it approaches the shore. The tsunamis also damaged boats in Los Angeles and Hawaii. Tide gauges in Freeport, Texas recorded waves similar to seismic waves. And surfers at Coleroy Beach in Sydney, Australia, reported their usually gentle and small waves peaked violently at more than 20 feet on Easter Sunday. Entire towns across South Central Alaska crumbled. Streets bucked, and cars and stores and homes dropped into wide crevices that split across the ground. This earthquake altered more of the Earth's crust than any other earthquake on record, according to the U.S. Geological Survey reports. On uninhabited Montague Island, near the quake's epicenter, the quake raised the land as much as 33 feet. It lowered the ocean floor up to 150 feet near the devastated harbors of Seward and Valdez. The shoreline and parts of the Kenai Peninsula lifted 8 feet. Kodiak Island dropped 5.5 feet, and Anchorage shifted laterally 6 feet. The Good Friday earthquake, which disrupted 185,000 square miles, larger than California, was the first properly interpreted megathrust quake according to the USGS. Megathrust quakes occur in subduction zones where tectonic plates converge. When forces build up and those plates slip, the results can be catastrophic, as in Alaska. Some said the quake that shook, cut, dropped, heaved, and twisted south-central Alaska started with a gentle roll. Still others said it began with a single sharp crack. But all who experienced the almost 5 minutes of terror will never forget the day when needles on seismographs thousands of miles away went clear off their machines and tsunamis swept across the ocean floor at more than 400 miles per hour and flooded Alaska towns and the West Coast. Many people struggled to stand as the ground rolled like waves. They saw treetops slap the ground, and fissures opened up 30 feet wide, split the earth, and then snapped shut again. Depending on where they were when the quake hit, people climbed trees, clutched power poles, or tried to run to keep from being hurled into massive cracks or carried out to sea by giant waves. The immense quake and resulting tsunamis caused massive property damage, but the death toll was remarkably low. Experts say that the population density of the state being low and the few tall buildings in the towns and the time of day that this massive earthquake occurred and that it hit on a holiday, Good Friday, most Alaskans were home. So that's why the death toll was so low. While the devastation of property was enormous, of more concern to most Alaskans was whether loved ones had survived the horrific event. Communication systems were severely damaged or non-existent in some cases. Relatives and friends, both inside and outside Alaska, had no way to communicate. Aftershocks as large as 6.5 rattled the lands and the nerves about every hour for days. Anxiety and concern reigned as Alaskans gathered together without heat, power, or information in sub-zero temperatures. For the first few hours, only those lucky enough to have ham radios heard bits of news and pieces of information, and rumors, as voices crackled through the airwaves that long, dark night. Just heard, Valdez is gone, wrote Phyllis Downing Carlson in her diary after hearing a ham radio operator share the news. Ever the journalist and historian, my Aunt Phil, who was living 2.6 miles east of Kodiak on Woody Island and working for the Federal Aviation at the time, recorded this major event as it unfolded and her own home shook to its core. She learned that tidal waves had inundated Kodiak, fissures and landslide covered Anchorage, and no one had yet heard from other communities along Alaska's coast. She also heard several operators saying prayers for the missing and their loved ones. The military and Alaska communication system labored all night to restore power lines to the lower 48, and local radio stations moved swiftly to get back on the air so people with transistor radios could keep abreast of vital news. The American Red Cross and the Salvation Army jumped into high gear as well. Soon, more than 800 U.S. Army troops were guarding devastated areas, providing medical support and assisting U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to clear the slides and open the roads and the railroad tracks. The U.S. Air Force immediately donated food, medical, and other supplies for Alaska's residents. And the Alaskan Air Command quickly moved hundreds of thousands of pounds of cargo throughout stricken areas. The grim news reached the LBJ Ranch in Texas, where President Lyndon B. Johnson was spending the Easter weekend. Advisors woke the president twice during the night to give him updates on the devastation, according to newspaper articles of the time. In the morning, Johnson officially declared the 49th state a disaster area. One Anchorage policeman said it was worse than a disaster. After assisting with emergency services for 24 hours, he told a Newsweek reporter, "It was hell." Bustling Anchorage, Alaska's largest city with a population close to 50,000 at the time, suffered the most property damage. 3 giant waves washed into Whittier within 3 minutes, ruptured oil tanks, ignited and set the town of Seward ablaze. Tsunami waves swept into Valdez, and tidal waves devastated Kodiak's downtown district, and several villages were obliterated. The tsunami waves continued south at more than 400 miles per hour, damaging a logging camp and several houses in British Columbia, and then on to Washington, California, and Oregon. By the time it reached Hawaii, it damaged a few yachts and was barely visible when it hit the coast of Japan. The following chapters in this book share the stories of the people of the time in all of the towns that were affected. I found first-hand accounts shared 2 weeks after the earthquake happened from every single community. And so that section really brings to life what the people went through and then how they rebuilt the towns in their state.